Hi, I'm Marty, and this is Cooking at the Kraus House. This channel is about learning to love cooking. Cooking is simple, it's inexpensive, it's healthy, it's easy, it's fun, and the results are so delicious. I have friends who have asked me if I could teach them how to cook, and that's really how this idea started. I'm really a special education teacher. I teach resource math at the high school level, which I love, and I love the kids, although some are a little naughty. But mostly, they just struggle with math. But it is a really fun and great job. My other passion is cooking. I love to cook for my family and friends, and I want everybody to learn and love to cook also. And I want it to be fun and easy. And that is what this channel is going to be about. These are the ingredients you're going to need to make your artisan bread. First, I want you to use a glass bowl. And the reason is because we're going to cover it with plastic wrap, and plastic wrap sticks on it the best. We'll also need 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Now, kosher salt is a little bit different than your table salt. It's a little larger, more coarse. And you'll also need just a half a teaspoon of yeast. You want to get active dry yeast. You don't want to use rapid rise, just active dry yeast. And you only need a tiny bit, so you don't have to buy it in a 1-pound bag. You can get just the little packets of it. You just want to use a half a teaspoon. I think there's more than a half a teaspoon in a package. And a cup and a half of warm water. There's a couple variations that you can use, and my sister loves this. I like it just plain bread, but she likes to add to it, and it's delicious too. And so what you can add to it is 2 tablespoons of rosemary. So if you have rosemary bush or you have one in your neighborhood, just cut a couple sprigs off, take off the leaves, chop it up. And you can also add in garlic that you chop up also, probably only about a tablespoon of garlic. And you add it when you are stirring in before you add the water. When you add the flour and the yeast and the salt, you'd add your garlic and your rosemary. Now, if you're using this variation, at the very end, when you have your last 15 minutes of baking, you want to take a handful of Asiago cheese and sprinkle it over the top and let it cook on there the last 15 minutes. And then also, if you're going with that variation, another thing you can do instead of butter, but you could use butter to spread on the bread to eat it, you can also use your bruschetta mix and add some olive oil, just like some fancy restaurant. And you can use that instead of butter, or you can use butter. Also, it makes great toast in the morning, and you can just slice it, put it in your toaster, and butter it up, and it's delicious. All right, so we're going to start with 3 cups of flour. And we're going to add in our half a teaspoon of yeast and our 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. And then we just kind of stir it up. Nobody wants to get a gigantic bite of salt when they eat your delicious bread. So we're just going to stir it up so it won't be in any one place. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is the water. Now, the reason that most people don't like to make bread is because it makes them nervous, the whole yeast concept. So the yeast and the flour together are what make bread work. You don't have to have sugar. As you see, this doesn't have any sugar in it, but the water needs to be around the right temperature. It's not necessarily a degree, and you can decide if it's warm enough just by touch. And this is how you decide. If you were going to take a shower, you want it warm enough to take a shower in, but not too hot so that you couldn't stick your face in there or wash your hair. So when you fill it, when it feels like that and you think, oh, I could probably stick my face in there, then you have it at the right temperature. And we're going to use a cup and a half of water. A little too much. And we're going to pour it into our flour, yeast, and salt. You just want to stir it till all the flour is incorporated, and it's not all over the sides. Just kind of get it to where it's basically all clumped together. But what I want you to notice is that it's a ragged dough. It's not all nice and smooth. We're never going to knead it. It's just a raggedy looking dough. All right, and so when you're finished stirring, the next step is plastic wrap. And you're just going to tear off a piece and make sure that the bowl is covered tightly with the plastic wrap. Now this dough has no kneading, no anything else. We're just going to set it on the counter, and you leave it there anywhere from 8 to 24 hours. And this is one of the reasons I absolutely love this dough, and what makes it so easy is I'm a teacher, and so I'm gone all day, but if I want to have bread for dinner, or if we're having guests come over, I'll make it in the morning before I go to work. I stir it up, put the plastic wrap on, and then I just leave it on the counter. And I can leave it there all night. If I don't have time to do it all day, sorry, if I don't have time to do it before I go to school, I can even do it the night before, because it can go up to 24 hours, and you just leave it there. You don't touch it, you don't check it, you don't lift the wrap. You just leave it there until you're ready to use it. All right, so I wanted to talk about the kind of pans you use to cook this bread. These are called Dutch ovens, and I thought that a Dutch oven were those big cast iron pots that you use when you go camping, and actually they are, and actually you can use those if you don't have a Dutch oven. So a Dutch oven is really just a pan that can go into the oven that has a lid. So it doesn't have to be fancy. These are a couple that I have and love. This one has a cast iron inside. It's not coated, it's just cast iron. It's really easy to use, and you can use it to cook just about anything. This one is expensive. This is the other one I have, and it is, sorry, these are so loud. It is enamel coated on the inside. Now this is a great pan. You can use it for anything. You can cook a roast in it. You can make caramels or candy. You can do stew. Anything that you cook in the oven or on your stovetop, you can use this pan for, and it works great. And you need a pan with a lid, a Dutch oven, in order to make this bread successfully. All right, so now it's the next day or 8 hours later or whenever you're ready to actually cook your dough. So the first thing you want to do is put your pan into the oven. So you're going to leave the lid off, and you're going to put the pan in the oven and then turn the oven on to 450. You want the pan to heat up as the oven heats up. So we're just going to stick this into the oven. And we're going to let that heat up. And we're going to use the lid later, so we're just going to keep it close. And then we're going to prepare our dough. So we want to sprinkle some flour onto the counter. And remember, this isn't a dough that we knead or push around a lot, so we don't need a ton of flour. We just want to be able to coat both sides. And you can see how bubbly it's gotten while it was rising. And we're going to just turn it out onto our little floured spot. And it's super sticky, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. And we want to have those big air bubbles in our bread when it's finished. So like I said, we're not going to handle it a lot. We're just going to make sure it gets covered with the flour so it's not quite so sticky. So I usually turn it over, And now we want it to form a ball, and we want to keep it from being sticky, so there's quite a bit of flour on it. And I'm just going to tuck it and turn it until it looks like a nice circle that I'm happy with. So we're just tucking those edges under, kind of turning it into a circle. I think that looks lovely, so I'm going to be finished, and that is seriously how long it takes. You want to keep some flour on it. It kind of gives it that old world look when it comes out to be kind of dusted with flour, and it cracks and forms some nice little curly things on it, and so we want to get it ready to do that. And then we're just going to let it sit there for about 10 or 15 minutes and let it rest while our oven heats up, which takes about 15 or so minutes. So as long as it takes for the oven to get to 450, that's about how long you can leave it sitting on your counter. Okay, so our bread is rested about 15 minutes. Now you're going to kind of go around and make sure that it's not stuck on the counter, because you don't want to, when you lift it up, have it stick on the counter and change its lovely shape. So I'm going to first open the oven and pull the shelf out so I can just drop my bread in. So I'll pick it up carefully, and you only want to be tender because you don't want all the flour and stuff to fall off, but it's really pretty hearty, so you can't really ruin it. I'm going to just drop it in here. I'm going to move it around a little so it's in the middle of the pan, and now I'm going to put the lid on, shove it back in there, and close it up. Now I'm going to let it cook for a full 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes is over, I'm going to take the lid off, and it'll be kind of lightish, starting to change color, light goldy, but I want it to be a rich gold color. So I'm going to take the lid off, and I'm going to set the timer for 15 more minutes. Now if you're making the variation that has rosemary in it, when you take the lid off, you can take a handful of Asiago cheese and sprinkle it on the top and let it cook with the lid off. Otherwise, just take the lid off and set your timer for 15 minutes and let it cook. Okay, so when your bread is done and you take it out of the oven, the only thing you want to do is sort of maybe not dump it out, but take like the edge of a wooden spoon or a spatula and kind of lift it out so that you don't break the little curls and the flour that's sprinkled on the top. You want that to stay looking nice and old world. And then when you cut it, you want to use a knife that has a serrated edge, or you can use an electric knife, which works out really good. And what I usually do is cut it in half, set those halves on their ends, and then slice it that way. It slices into anywhere from 10 to 16 each half, and it feeds about 10 or 11 people. So if this video was helpful to you, please leave a comment or subscribe. We're going to turn out a new video every Monday with helpful tips to help you be successful and love cooking. And I think that it's going to be something that you can be great at. Leave a comment. Make sure it's nice, because I have grandkids. Thank you.